I would say by now, many of us have heard of destiny swapping. If you're anywhere in the religious or the spiritual arenas, you've heard about destiny swapping. But what about destiny altering? What happens when factors of life and those who participate in those factors do everything to alter your destiny from the very beginning? When we look up the term alter, the word alter says to change or cause to change in character or composition, typically in a comparatively small but significant way. The movie Antoine Fisher is one of my top 10 movies of all times because there's so many layers and there's so many elements to the movie and there's so many messages that the director, the producer, and the screenwriters are trying to convey to the audience. And of course, we know it's based off of a true story. When I look at Antoine Fisher's story and looking at his life from the very beginning, one would say that he was dealt a terrible hand of cards. There were so many things that were stacked against him and his brother, but if you were a betting person, you would definitely say that this is a losing hand in life. With him meeting Dr. Davenport, we get an opportunity to see him do trauma digging or shadow work before he can do a complete shift and begin his healing and recovery process. A lot of his issue, and it was translated as anger and rage, but Dr. Davenport obviously knew that there was something deeper there. If you grew up in a severely dysfunctional environment or family, you have a hard time processing your emotions. There is some type of emotional suppression. There is a lack of emotional intelligence. And unfortunately, because you have a lot of emotional suppression, it is translated in many different ways. And so Dr. Davenport knew that he needed to get him to face things that he had been running from, because if not, it was going to lead to complete self destruction and probably a derailment of his future. You get an opportunity to see as he goes back how his destiny could have been altered for the worse, considering, as I said, there were so many losing parts to his story growing up in foster care. How Miss Tate and Nadine play a big role in his developmental years as an adolescent to a teenager, and how it affected him horribly, from his self esteem being purposely damaged, them projecting a lot of their own personal brokenness onto him and his brother, the mind games that they played with the narcissistic golden child to scapegoating type of thing that Miss Tate did between he and his brother, trying to create a rift or a separation so that they did not feel a sense of camaraderie or a sense of harmony towards one another. And then also him being introduced to SEX in a very horrible and traumatic way by Nadine, taking advantage of his boyhood and his innocence as a child. One would say that Antoine was definitely going to be set up for either prison or being unalived. Once we kind of fast forward to him finally getting the strength to stand up for himself against Miss Tate, after being consistently over the years abused psychologically, emotionally, and physically, her making the decision to throw him out on the streets, it was kind of like divine intervention, because the series of events that took place post that, it was the determining factor for Antoine to be at a crossroads in his life to figure out which direction was he going to go. With him seeing his friend being taken away from him because of a horrible decision that he made in terms of the armed robbery at the store, here he is experiencing another traumatic event after his friend always looking out for him, and him finally finding a little bit of peace and solace in someone who showed him some humanity. It seems as though everything that Antoine loved was either taken away from him or he didn't have it for long. And so, with him losing his friend and then seeing the decision that his friend made, he was left with the test. Are you going to go down the same road, or are you going to figure out a way where it doesn't seem like there's any other way? And luckily for him, the military was his way out. Fast forward, divine intervention came in the form of Dr. Davenport. Meeting Antoine and seeing how angry he was as a young man, he could clearly see that the anger that was being expressed was nothing but suppressed pain and trauma. And in order for him to help this young man not destroy his life any further, he had to tell him that the keys to unlock the freedom that he so desperately wanted, he had to stop running. Many of us, whether it is emotionally or mentally, you're on the run. You are running from the very thing that you have to face. You have to speak to it because it has been an anchor in your life. It has been a weight that has been weighing your soul down, a very heavy, heavy burden that we carry around. And even though we do a great job trying to maintain, it always comes out in some type of self destructive way. And so he had to go face the very thing that he had been running from, and he had to go speak to it, and he had to return that thing back to sender. And so looking at him going back, trying to find the mother that he never really knew, he was able to make peace with that little boy, always wondering who she was and what she was about and all of these types of imaginary things. And what that does, it silences the desire of the inner child. The inner child had been crying and weeping inside of a grown man for many, many years. And so he was able to bring comfort to that little boy by facing his mother, his birth mother. That although he had gone through so many things, because he didn't break it down how traumatic his life had been, but although he had gone through so many traumatic events in his life and so many things that tried to break his spirit, break his mind, break his heart, just break him down completely, that he never smoked, he did not drink, he never even touched a cigarette. And I think that is something that is very important to highlight, because there are those of us, myself included, who have gone through so many life altering events in life, and we made a conscious decision to face these things soberly. That is a big deal. To not turn to drugs or alcohol, or for some people, promiscuity, or putting that down and not finding those self destructive ways as an outlet, because we watch how a lot of those substances have destroyed many of our relatives before us. And so him making a conscious decision to not engage in any substances was a very big deal. Because here is a man that was really dealt a very crappy hand. And so I like that he told his mother that even though she didn't really give him any feedback, I think due to shame and guilt, he was able to put that on her heart that I'm okay. That even though you were not there, I'm okay. He didn't try to make her feel any worse than what she already looked and felt. He was able to have that moment. And I think that that was a blessing for his life. And then moving forward, confronting the thing that he ran away from the first time, Miss Tate and Nadine. Those people were devils in the flesh to Antoine. They were demonic handlers in his life, people that did everything to break him mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. And for him to no longer run, but face them and tell them, everything you tried to do to me, I'm not only still here, but I am not broken. You may have bruised me, but you did not break me. I thought that that was so amazing to see that he was able to confront the devils in his life. And then, of course, the guilt and the shame eating Tate up so badly that for the first time in her life, she did the right thing by introducing this man to some information that could have saved his life from the beginning. How many of those of us come from families and come from environments where people will watch you suffer? They will not come to your aid. They will not support you. They will not help you. They will literally watch you suffer, but they will have pivotal information, or they will have outlet and resources that belong to you that could help you in life. And they choose to withhold that information. Some people steal it from you, or they'll try to withhold valuable information just to make your life harder, just so you could have more burdens, just so they can watch you suffer for entertainment. Sometimes God will do that. He will make people who have really been enemies to you for the first time in their life do right by you, because that guilt is a punishment within itself. To know that you have valuable information that could help a person who you know is good at heart, and to withhold that information for as long as she did, sometimes the guilt is enough punishment to make a person release the thing that belongs to you. He got an opportunity to see and to know that there was not only a way out through therapy, but he had love. He had people that really genuinely cared for him. And I like that they were able to humanize Dr. Davenport and show some of the struggles and things that he also faced as it pertains to the family dynamic or longing for a family dynamic of his own. And how Antoine Fisher kind of became like a surrogate son to he and his wife. I like that they added that element in there, and how sometimes in life you may come from either no family or a family that's just not healthy for you, and how God will not leave you out there isolated and alone. And on your journey, you meet people who love you like family should have, or they love you just like family is supposed to, and they take you under their wings and they love you unconditionally and they see you and they accept you. And for the first time in your life, you don't feel invisible or you don't feel uncovered or unsupported. And just God is so good. Like I always tell people, one thing about God, he is never going to leave you uncovered, alone, or isolated. As you continue on in your journey, you will meet soul family. You will meet people who are your family in the spirit, and they see you, they accept you, and they love and embrace you as one of their own. But nevertheless, God knows the end from the beginning and the beginning from the end. And so I hope that this has been a blessing to someone who is listening to this. That even though the way the beginning of your life was set up to alter your destiny for the worse, I pray that you understand that if you have gone through any type of deliverance in your life, if you have called out to God just through pain, agony, and anger, and God heard your cry, and He came in like He said that He would, that He would sup with you, He will be a father to the fatherless, a mother to the motherless. And you have allowed God to remove a lot of pain, hurt, and anger from your heart. And even if you don't have all the answers that you would like to have as it pertains to your whole life, just knowing that there is life after trauma, there is life after evil, playing out evil, and there is life, love, and purpose. But you can walk in the destiny that God has designed for you. No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue that rises up against you shall be condemned by the power of the blood of Jesus Christ.